B20 의장님, 그리고 전 세계에서 오신 기업인 여러분 반갑습니다. 대한민국과 특별한 인연이 있는 B20 서밋에서 여러분과 함께하게 돼서 매우 기쁘게 생각합니다. 여러분들께서도 잘 아시겠지만 G20 정상회의와 연계해서 개최되는 B20 서밋은 2010년 G20 서울 정상회의를 계기로 시작됐습니다. B20는 당시 글로벌 금융위기를 극복하는 과정에서 각국 정부 간의 협력뿐 아니라 기업 간의 협력도 매우 중요하다는 인식에서 출범했습니다. 이제는 글로벌 이슈에 대한 민간 소통 채널로서 확고하게 자리매김을 했습니다. 기업인 여러분, 저는 오늘 여러분께 글로벌 복합 위기 극복을 위한 기업의 역할, 그리고 디지털 전환 시대의 글로벌 협력에 대해 말씀드리겠습니다. B20 서밋이 출범한 후에 지금 10년이 지났습니다. 세계 경제는 또다시 복합 위기에 직면해 있습니다. 역사적으로 볼 때 글로벌 경제 위기는 반복돼 왔지만 각각의 위기는 조금씩 다른 모습을 보여왔습니다. 현재 우리가 직면한 위기는 2008년 글로벌 금융 위기나 2020년 팬데믹 위기와는 그 양상과 대응 방식에서 다른 모습을 가지고 있습니다. 2008년 글로벌 금융 위기는 금융 시스템의 붕괴로 인해서, 또 2020년 팬데믹 위기는 방역을 위한 봉쇄 조치로 인해
Both led to a drastic drop in aggregate demand, sending strong shockwaves through the entire global economy. Through international coordination, interest rate cuts, liquidity supply, and fiscal expansion measures were taken. And governments drove the efforts to restore financial systems and increase vaccine supply, for instance, in response to those crises. However, the crisis we face currently was triggered less by demand-side factors, but more by shocks on the supply side. During the recovery from the pandemic, supply chain disruptions and an array of geopolitical conflicts served as compounding factors, driving up production costs and shrinking supply capacity. Accordingly, a solution to the current crisis must come from the supply side as well, and government roles also need to be redefined. The private sector and the market should play central roles in transforming economic systems and strengthening economic fundamentals to surmount a crisis. I have always emphasized this point. It is in this context that efforts are underway to drastically overhaul the regulations that hinder corporate investment and foster an enabling environment for businesses. Government spending, if unnecessary and non-essential, is dramatically cut to restore fiscal soundness and prevent fiscal spending from crowding out private sector investment. That is my belief. At the same time, Korea is significantly increasing R&D investment in science and technology that businesses find difficult to afford themselves alone, as well as support for talent development in frontier technology sectors. Business leaders. Given the current global circumstances, key to the private sector-led supply-side innovation is, in my view, digital transformation. Digital technologies are being applied to existing industries and data to reduce costs and generate new added values, a process that is constantly leading to new business creation.
The private sector-led growth that the Korean government is pursuing also places its strongest focus on digital transformation. To ensure that digital companies are not held back by the regulations of the analog era, Korea is bringing innovation to outdated regulations while working to create a business-friendly digital regulatory environment that promotes self-regulation in principle. Also, to cultivate talent needed for the digital age, Korea is embarked on education and vocational training reforms as well. For artificial intelligence, next-generation communication, cybersecurity, and other core digital technologies, intensive support is being provided for their development. Notably, the Korean government is currently pursuing a digital platform government as a priority task, through which the private sector takes the lead in dramatically enhancing the quality of public services, while government data and private services emerged to create new value in an enabling environment. In the meantime, for supply-side innovation that harnesses digital technologies to help further enrich the lives of humanity, we need to channel our energy on materializing universal values in the digital space as well. Last September in New York, on the occasion of my attendance at the UN General Assembly, at the NYU, I proposed that for freedom, solidarity, human rights, and other universal values of humanity to be realized also in the digital world, the entire world should engage in efforts to build and safeguard a new digital order. The digital ecosystem must be open to everyone, and anyone should be able to access and use digital data in an equitable manner. In this vein, I believe that the B20 is the most fitting public forum for discussing the global digital order. In this year's B20 summit, many digital companies that are spearheading digital businesses are taking part. You understand the digital world better than any others, and at the same time, we all share the responsibility for creating a desirable digital order, transcending borders and leaving no one behind in sharing the benefits of the digital era. The B20, I hope, will lead the way in shaping the digital order that is relevant for us all. Committed to leading the G20 discussion for establishing a new digital order, the Korean government will fully support the B20 and G20 in their close collaboration towards that end. Business leaders from around the world, for private-led supply-side innovation to pull us out of the complex global crisis, cooperation has to take place not only amongst governments of each country, but also between private and public sectors and across the private sector in a harmonious manner. And to that end, the B20 needs to play different roles and also adjust its positioning. From the outset, the B20 has gathered views of global business leaders to support governments in their international coordination through the G20, the role it has fulfilled faithfully. At this G20 summit as well, I am sure that facilitation of digital trade, enhancement of inclusivity of global supply chains, and other diverse agendas for cooperation discussed thus far have been put forward by the B20. However, the B20 should now work to not only identify its own unique global business cooperation agendas, but also act as a vehicle for forging partnerships among companies. Through this, I hope that the B20 will position itself as a linchpin of multi-tier collaboration for global supply-side innovation. The Republic of Korea, as one of the global leaders, will stand behind and support the B20's active role to overcome the current global crisis with greater speed and make a significant leap forward beyond. For the entire world, let us gather our wisdom and move forward together. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of Korea, His Excellency Mr. Yoon Suk-yeol. Once again, thank you, Mr. President. Now, ladies and gentlemen, apart from the President of the Republic of Korea, we'll be having 3 other state leaders speaking on the stage later. The President of the Republic of Indonesia, the Prime Minister of Canada, and the Prime Minister of Australia. And we're also going to take a listen to what Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, in her capacity as UN Secretary General Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development, has to say, as well as actress Anne Hathaway in her capacity as UN Women Goodwill Ambassador, speaking about unlocking the full potential of women in the economy. And later, we will have also the Minister of State for Foreign Trade of the United Arab Emirates, His Excellency Thani bin Ahmed Al Zayudi. But I'd like to take you back to the previous sessions, as we had many inspiring speakers and also inspiring leaders sharing to us, especially for those of you who has just joined the second day of B20 Summit just now after the break. And we had earlier, we had Mr. Jeff Bezos and Professor Klaus Schwab that we will later share to you again about what we have gained from both persons. But now the set is ready for the next session. Now we move on to another keynote address touching upon the importance of driving global partnership to accelerate energy transition. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Minister of State for Foreign Trade of the United Arab Emirates, His Excellency Thani bin Ahmed Al Zayudi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon to you all. May I begin by convening the greetings and regards of the leadership of the UAE to the Republic of Indonesia and its people, and applaud your nation's presidency of the G20 over the last year. It's my pleasure to be back in Bali and addressing you at this important forum. The B20 Summit plays a vital role in connecting the insights, experiences, expertise of the business community to the policy agendas of the global bodies and governments. The private sector in G20 countries remain the principal driver of the global trade. Collectively, they represent 75% of the all cross-border commerce. They also make up 54% of the UAE's non-oil trade, which has a value of $281.1 billion. It's in the real world of commerce and consumption that ideas are tested, battle-hardened, and either refined or rejected. And it is why the input of the private sector is so critical to the drive long-term transformational changes. Today, there are few changes quite as critical as energy transition, both as a means to ensure access to energy sources for growing global population and adhere to our commitments to the Paris Agreement. The demand is simple, as it's daunting to ensure global temperature don't rise by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2100. We need to reduce emission by 50% by 2030. And according to the United Nations, this will require cumulative investments of more than $24 trillion into energy transition technologies over the upcoming 27 years. Alongside the financial investment, there will also need to be a comprehensive policy approach that balances the competing needs of business, society, and environment, especially in the developing world. During G20 summit in Rome last year, it was made clear that not enough is being done, that we are already falling well short of our targets. And as we emerge from global pandemic and confront the growing threats of recession, it's important that our short-term needs for growth does not overwhelm our long-term commitment to the planet. As such, multilateral approach that harness the public, private, and academic sectors across the world are now required. This simply is not an issue that can be tackled in isolation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the United Arab Emirates believes it can offer an important voice in this conversation. As a major oil producer, we have been engaged in energy transition since our foundation as a nation in 1971. For us, it means not only switching from one supply to another, but reimagining the very fundamental of our economy. And just as the oil and gas industry now contributes less than 28% of our total GDP, it's our ambition that hydrocarbon will be less than half of our energy mix by 2050. We are already making strong progress. According to the Green Fuel Index, the UAE has increased our renewable energy capacity more than any other countries in the world over the last 10 years, thanks to the facilities such as Sheikh Hamad bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park in Dubai, world's largest single solar facility. We now produce the cheapest commercial scale solar power on the planet. In 2009, we commissioned the Middle East's first peaceful nuclear program, and today Baraka plant in Abu Dhabi is saving 5 million tons of CO2 every year. It's perhaps no surprise that Abu Dhabi, our capital, was chosen as the global headquarters of IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency. Importantly, these capabilities are forming a new form of energy exports from the Gulf. The UAE now has the means and knowledge to catalyze energy transition in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. We have now invested $50 billion in clean energy projects in 70 nations across 6 continents, and continue to partner with countries around the world to increase capacity wherever it's needed. Just last week, the UAE and United States of America signed a partnership for accelerating clean energy, which will invest $100 billion to deploy 100 gigawatts of clean energy by 2035. At COP last week, we announced a joint venture to build a 10 gigawatt onshore wind farm in Egypt, capable of offsetting 23.8 million tons of carbon dioxide. This follows our other huge international partnerships, including a pioneering projects between the UAE, Israel, and Jordan to trade solar power electricity for drinking water, and investments in hydrogen production in both UK and Africa. This partnership's approach can be seen right here in Indonesia. In 2021, Masdar, the UAE Renewable Energy Pioneers, and Indonesia PJPI joined forces to construct 145 megawatt Serata floating solar plant, the first in Indonesia. Energy transition is also a key component of our new foreign trade agenda, launched last September last year. Our comprehensive economic partnership agreements are creating a new platform for joint ventures and investments in solar, hydrogen, and wind, and sparking research and developments into other critical areas such as water and food security. In July this year, we signed CEPA with Indonesia, a landmark deal that will remove and reduce tariffs on 90% of product lines, remove unnecessary barriers of trade, and create a framework for investments. These measures will help push the value of bilateral trade between UAE and Indonesia from 3 billion to beyond 10 billion within 5 years. The UAE-Indonesia CEPA is building on firm foundations. In the first 9 months of 2022, non-oil trade reached $2.8 billion, 33% growth on the same period, 2021. And since 2019, we have concluded agreements with combined value of $32 billion, many of them as we have mentioned, in renewable energy. We have added to these bilateral agreements here in Bali with 16 new MOUs covering sectors on diverse as aviation, healthcare, electricity mobility solutions, and many others. Ladies and gentlemen, it's this broad-based multilateral approach that can be applied to a range of issues, and it's clear that our net zero commitments are not in opposition to the growth objective that can help catalyze them. And many of the investment community already agree. The Global Greenfields Investment Trends Report from 2020 says that renewable energy received $85.2 billion across 466 projects in 2021, making it is the biggest single recipient of FDI. The current energy supply crisis is a point of concern, but it should be a moment of realization. We already have many of the solutions at our fingertips. What we need to do now is mobilize the capital to begin these projects where they are needed. It is, I fully believe, the ultimate win-win investment. We in the UAE are ready to work with the international community to unlock these opportunities and deliver the best possible retain sustainable access to clean energy. Looking forward to work with many of you and enjoy the rest of the events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Al-Zaidi. Some important points to highlight that according to the Green Fuel Index, the UAE has increased their renewable energy capacity more than any other country in the world over the last 10 years. And in 2009, as the minister said, the country commissioned the Middle East's first peaceful nuclear program. And today, the Barakah nuclear plant in Abu Dhabi is saving 5 million tons of CO2 every year. And there's a coordination and collaboration as well with the Indonesian government. The UAE has means and also knowledge to catalyze energy transition in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, including in Indonesia, in which 145 megawatt Cirata floating solar plant was jointly constructed in 2021 by PGBR and Masdar, the UAE's renewable energy pioneer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's now move on to the next session. I am pleased and honored to share with you that we have a very special speaker, as we mentioned earlier, Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. Queen Maxima has served as the United Nations Secretary General's Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development, or the UNSGSA, since 2009. As a special advocate, she is a leading global voice on advancing universal access to and responsible usage of affordable, effective, and safe financial services. The UNSGSA raises awareness, serves as a convener, encourages leaders, and supports actions to expand financial inclusion at a global and country level, all in close collaboration with partners from the public and also private sectors. Thus, here presenting to you on the topic of enabling digital transformation to promote financial inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Majesty Queen Maxima.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to join with you virtually and to support Indonesia's B20 presidency. I thank you for this opportunity to put financial inclusion at the heart of our discussions. These are difficult times for people everywhere, and we're all seeking new ways to tackle the challenges before us, from COVID to conflict to inflation to climate change. Inclusive finance offers new opportunities to build resilience, weather shocks, and invest in a more prosperous future. Over the last decade, a quarter of the world's adult population has gained access to financial services. Today, 76% of adults globally are now financially included. In my work as the UN Secretary General's Special Advocate, I have seen the remarkable difference that inclusive digital infrastructure in concert with digital financial services make for people and small businesses. From Jakarta to East Africa, millions of small merchants are now paid and making payments with their own phones, transforming their ability to invest. During the COVID pandemic, governments from Brazil to Togo sent emergency digital payments directly to vulnerable households at unprecedented speed. But we should move beyond payments. A broad range of financial services, such as savings, insurance, and credit, are needed for individuals, households, and SMEs to fully benefit from the digital economy. We also need continued commitment to put in place a digital financial infrastructure that is inclusive, safe, and equitable. Greater connectivity and digital IDs allow access to financial services for millions previously left behind. Fair competition and interoperable payment systems help markets work better for even the smaller scale customers. Cybersecurity, consumer protection, data governance, and digital literacy help marginalized communities navigate these services in ways that really work for them. India offers a good example with the India Stack, which combines ID cards, a payment interface, and account aggregators in one easily accessible platform. Peru and Estonia have shown how smaller countries can also have digital IDs, payments, and e-governance use cases to build digital stacks that really work for all. Public-private collaborations are key for innovation and scale. Indonesia's digital and employment assistance programs, Kartu Prakerja, has demonstrated how partnering with digital training institutes, job platforms, online marketplaces, and fintechs helped support over 11 million beneficiaries. This includes building skills to start businesses or find employment, while providing cash assistance directly to the e-wallet in their mobile phones. Private-private partnerships that provide services across entire value chains is also crucial, especially for SMEs. There are many examples of fintechs creating digital ecosystems to help small businesses digitize their inventory management, marketing, payments, credit, and sales. Suddenly, these SMEs leap forward and connect to larger markets beyond the brick-and-mortar presence. Critical here is the transparency in the collection, sharing, and usage of customers' and SMEs' data. Most customers grant consent without reading the terms and conditions, which are often long and hard to comprehend. Individuals and businesses often do not know the value of the data they create. And even if they do, they find it difficult to assert their rights or benefit from the value in the form of better products or lower costs. This is urgent, as platform-based businesses increasingly explore using customers' data footprints to embed financial services in social media, e-commerce, and entertainment platforms. During today's summits, you will be able to discuss all these important issues. So, let us ask, how can we finance, design, and govern this digital stack infrastructure in a more inclusive way? How can we empower individuals and SMEs with their own data? And how can public-private and private-private collaborations further take advantage of these digital transformation possibilities to provide services to the vulnerable, as well as enable them to benefit from the digital economy? It will require action from all stakeholders, especially the many leaders from the business, policy, and financial sectors here today from Indonesia, G20 countries, and around the world. Your role is crucial. I wish you every success in your efforts to create a digital financial system which really benefits everyone.
Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, a very important message indeed from the Queen of the Netherlands. And the Queen also said that we should move beyond payment for digital financial services because we need savings, insurance, and also credits that are needed by individuals, households, and MSMEs to fully benefit from the digital economy. And we also need to put in place a digital financial infrastructure that is inclusive, safe, and equitable. And it's really a pride moment for Indonesians that she mentioned about the pre-employment card, or in Indonesia we call as Kartu Prakerja, because personally it was very close to me, Kartu Prakerja. I was assigned to host and also MC the launch of Kartu Prakerja, or the pre-employment card. And that Kartu Prakerja just started like months, but then the pandemic hit and the government needs to act fast and adjust and also transform Kartu Prakerja into assistance fund. So the card that was supposedly designed for assistance, for entrepreneurship, for retraining, upskilling, then was transformed into assistance fund. And that was a proof of the agility of the government of Indonesia in transforming that facility into something that people can rely on to survive during a very difficult time during the pandemic. And I believe that many governments and also many business leaders did the same agility into their country, into their business to save lives, because we were facing difficulties back then. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we need to do some adjustment about the scheduling. I would like to invite now Anne Hathaway to remind us about how important equality is and how important women's role in making our life better and the importance of women to be given the same opportunity. Please welcome Anne Hathaway.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to speak to you today as a Goodwill Ambassador for UN Women. Women's participation and equal power is fundamental to progress for everyone. I'm sure you are aware of the evidence which shows conclusively that equality between women and men make us all safer, happier, more prosperous, and more successful. And yet, the reality in which we find ourselves is that at the current rate of progress, it may take another 300 years to achieve gender equality. I hope we all agree this is 3 centuries too long. It is going to take more than hope to get us to a better future. Our current position is far from good. Progress for women and girls is in dramatic reverse in many countries. Rights and freedoms that women and girls had experienced as normal, to work, to learn, to make choices about their bodies, have been abruptly taken away. Some of those losses have been legislated or imposed by governing authorities against courageous resistance. Others have been brought to light and sharpened by unprecedented global crises, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic had a devastating impact on us all, but it hit women especially hard. There was a frightening intensification of domestic violence against women. Another threat to women's safety was the seismic loss of economic opportunities. Millions of women left the workforce in 2020. They lost their jobs at faster rates than men and have stayed out of the job market longer. And now, as fuel and food prices rise globally, amidst the climate emergency and sustained military conflicts, women's incomes, as well as their contributions to businesses' success and the recovery of markets, matter even more than ever. Ironically, the pandemic also showed us just how much our future progress depends on the skills and leadership of women. Women sustained our healthcare systems and invented life-saving vaccines. As leaders of countries, they gave us some of the most effective responses to the pandemic. And yet, we show time and time again that we do not equally value women's participation, contribution, and leadership. This year, in 169 countries and areas, that's most of the world, women's labor force participation is expected to stay below pre-pandemic levels. What can we attribute this to? Well, it's my regret to share with you that during the pandemic, women did an additional 512 billion hours of unpaid care work at home. While I let that statistic sink in, I would like to acknowledge the essential importance of care. Care is fundamental to the basic functioning of our economies and societies, and I'm not meaning to suggest otherwise. In fact, the reality is, everyone will need care at some point in their life. However, we must also recognize the reality that the current way care is provided and valued is unfair and unsustainable. We must address the cultural biases that automatically label care as women's work, Even before the pandemic, women spent more than 3 times as many hours as men on unpaid care and domestic work. It was unfair then, it's worse now. It's time to admit that something is very, very off. Whether or not we mean to, the fact is, we are taking advantage of women. Simply put, we must stop penalizing women for caring. We must stop relying on women to make it work and instead proactively make possible, support, and fairly compensate care work. UN Women has observed the care that's appreciated and properly valued in all its form is a critical missing link in unlocking the full potential of women in the economy and in society, which is, of course, the same thing as unlocking the full potential of everyone in the economy and society. Governments, businesses, and civil society can all play a role in this. UN Women would like to propose these practical and immediate actions. Ask governments to support care services, pay the taxes that fund them, prioritize the creation of family-friendly workplaces which include flexible working hours, paid parental leave, and in-house childcare facilities. This is a moment when we must urgently act not only to restore what has been lost for women and girls, but to end the harmful status quo which keeps inequality thriving. The stakes simply couldn't be higher. The world, not just women, needs innovative solutions more than ever. Optimizing inclusivity is our best chance at success. This esteemed group, which I am honored to address today, find themselves tasked with making decisions that shape lives. I urge you, put women at the heart of economic growth and recovery. Be the architects of a better future by doing what no one else has effectively done before. Prioritize women for the good of all. Thank you.
That was a very powerful message from Anne Hathaway, UN Women Goodwill Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, unlocking the full potential of women in the economy. And one of the most interesting points that I think was pointed out by Ms. Hathaway was that women and men suffer more during the pandemic, but women suffer more. And we're taking advantage of women, and we penalize women for caring. So we need to change and put women on priority for the better good of all. It is really consistent with the B20 legacies that was kicked off yesterday, or was inaugurated yesterday. One Global Women Empowerment, or OGWE, aggregating existing capacities and networks to accelerate and scale impactful women empowerment efforts globally. And the objective of the B20 Legacy One Global Women Empowerment that was inaugurated or strengthened yesterday was that to facilitate the acceleration of impactful inclusion of women in businesses in the global economy by providing digital capability, knowledge sharing, funding and investment, technical support, and supportive policies. And hopefully the B20 legacies can be translated into actions and will benefit women in general. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the next session. This is to announce a special B20 initiatives on green transition through the Green EV Fund cooperation that has been supported by the B20 Finance and Infrastructure Task Force. Just a bit of a background that we will witness a signing ceremony of $2 billion of Green EV Fund to invest in the end-to-end value chain of the EV ecosystem across sectors to achieve climate goals. We are still waiting for our speakers as well as the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, but the presentation and also the signing ceremony will give us an idea about several things. Firstly is about why we invest in the EV value chain. This is a very critical question to answer, and later our speaker will explain about 5 different reasons why we need to invest in EV. First and foremost is that global trend of increasing environmental awareness is on the rise, and fundamental cost and technology improvements, as what Professor Schwab said earlier, that the cost of technology will decrease eventually, including for cleaner energy. And the third is exponential growth in the global EV market. And the reason number 4 being $1 trillion opportunity in the electrification of transportation. And last but not least, emerging EV market in Indonesia with supportive fundamentals. Later, the speaker, Mr. Rida, will explain more about that. But now I would like to welcome all the delegates who have just come to the main ballroom. And we're still waiting for the Finance Minister, Ibu Sri Mulyani. But we will start the procession or the signing ceremony once she arrives. And we will also answer questions, why is it so attractive to invest in the EV sector in Indonesia? So yesterday, if you joined the first day, there was a bit of rivalry between Ministers of Energy, Minister of Tourism, and also Minister of Health, arguing about which is the most lucrative, which is the most financially feasible to invest in. Is it in the health sector? Is it in the tourism sector? Or is it in the energy sector? But this session would argue that it is also important to invest in the EV clean energy sector because of some of the benefits that we will gain, not only us as investors, but also the earth and our generation. Now we would like to welcome Bapak Erick Thohir, His Excellency Mr. Erick Thohir, the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises, or in Indonesia we call it BUMN. Thank you so much, Pak Erick, for coming. And for this ceremony, we're still waiting for the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, Ibu Sri Mulyani. And the reason being, ladies and gentlemen, why Indonesia is attractive for capturing the EV investment opportunity, because the country is an emerging global nickel hub. As we learned from the previous speakers in our session, that Indonesia is now committed not to exporting nickel ore or raw materials, but now the country is transforming into exporting value-added materials, value-added goods. And in the future, the country is aiming to export battery as well for EV. The second reason being robust potential EV market, because the EV sales target by 2025 in Indonesia is projected to be 2.5 million EV sales. And last but not least is huge planned investment as part of the EV value chain, that the EV planned investment by 2033 in Indonesia is planned to be 71 billion US dollars. And later, Pak Rida Wirakusuma will explain more about this. I'd like to ask the organizing committee though, can we invite Pak Rida to the stage to do the presentation first? All right. Okay, so let me give an introduction, Pak Rida. I would like to invite to come on stage the chair of B20 Indonesia's Finance and Infrastructure Task Force, CEO of Indonesia Investment Authority, or locally known as INA, Bapak Rida Wirakusuma. I have touched upon, Pak Rida, about your presentation, a bit about your presentation on how we need to invest in the EV market in Indonesia. But please continue, Pak Rida. The time is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As the chair of B20 Finance and Infrastructure and CEO of Indonesian Investment Authority, it is my pleasure to present to you one of INA's upcoming investment, which is a green electric vehicle fund, together with our partner CATL, a global leader in lithium-ion battery, and CMB International, a leading investment bank in China, and the early investor of CATL and electric vehicle. As part of the Indonesian Investment Authority, we have a dual mandate to not only deliver the risk-adjusted return, but also helping the nation develop sustainably. For example, I'm pleased to also share with you, yesterday we have signed a conditional share subscription and purchase agreement between Indonesia's largest pharmaceutical and integrated healthcare, between us and Silk Road Fund, as well as Biopharma. So I'm also pleased to actually share with you that this event is really, truly part of our push, B20, G20, towards a better future for our children in terms of fighting the climate change. We can just share some of my presentation, if you may, or otherwise I can just speak. First and foremost, as you know, climate change and the transition to net zero has been a key area of focus of B20 as well as the G20. This green EV, as you know, supports the B20 legacy priority of the accelerating the green transition. So it is only appropriate that in this occasion we have a signing which is witnessed by my boss and also the Minister of State-owned entity, Mr. Erick Thohir. I think people will be asking why we invest in the EV value chain. First, I think the reduction of CO2 emission drives huge, rapid pace of electric vehicle adoption as well as market penetration. Secondly, electric vehicle has come a long, long way. It will continue to become more and more advanced as well as cost efficient. In just 2 years, for example, EVs are expected to be in cost parity with conventional cars. The most significant driver of this cost efficiency is the battery cost, and which is the expertise of CATL, which fell by almost 90% in just over 10 years. Thirdly, the global market for EV has grown very rapidly. In just 3 years, the number of EVs on the road tripled. And last year, there were more than 16 million EVs on the road. It is projected that within 4 years, more than 50% of all the vehicles sold will be electric vehicles. And it is undeniably that the end-to-end value chain for EV is huge. And by 2030 to 20